Hello and welcome to another tutorial where we are going to build this animated login and registration form using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. Now at the left we have this image here and at the right we have the form. When I click on register now, it takes me to the registration form, and when I click on login now, it takes me back to the login form. At the top here we have some text, and below it we have enter username. So we can enter any username. Let's say Codevo. Then the password, let's also say Codevo. We can toggle this to see the password, or we can toggle this to hide it. We have the login button also at the bottom here. Then below that we have or continue with Google, Apple, Facebook or GitHub. Now let's go back to the registration form. When I click like this, it takes me to the registration form. Here we have some text here which says welcome Codevo, it's good to have you. Now we have enter email. We can enter our email, password or confirm password. We can click this to see the password, or we can click this to hide it. Then below that we have the register button, and below that we have or continue with, we have Google, our icons. So guys, this is the project we are going to build. If you like this project, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to this channel. So without wasting my time, let's get into the video. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is to download the setup file. So open your browser and search for WP Codevo, which is my website. And here we have the article for the login and registration form. So click here, or in the future, if you can't see the post there, click on categories, then scroll down and look for HTML and CSS. So click this, and here you can have access to the post. So click on login and registration form, then scroll down and look for setup files. So in order to download the setup file, click here to open in another browser. I already have it downloaded, so I'm not going to download it again. I have it on my desktop, so let me go back to my desktop. And here we have the setup file, which is a zip file. So let me extract this. And now we have access to the project. So click this to open it. And here we have the images folder containing the various images we're going to use, which are SVGs and one test image. Let me go back and open the project with my text editor. You can use any text editor of your choice, but I'm going to use VS Code. Now open index.html, and you can see we have some simple boilerplate here where we have linked our styles.css and also our index.js. Then we've changed the title also to sign up / login form. Now when you open styles.css, you can see I've already imported the font we are going to use in the project, and I've reset the browser also. I've set margin 0, padding 0, then box sizing to border box, and font family to Poppins. And we have some color variables also here which I'm going to use in the project. Now let's go back to index.html and start writing some code. Alright, so below the body tag, let's start with a section, and within this section let's have our container class. Then within the container, let's start with a div with a class of user and a secondary class of login. Then within this login div, let's have an image box. So box. Then within the image box, let's have our image, and let's enter into our images folder, and let's look for login.svg. Then below the image box, let's have a div with a class of form box. Then within this form box, let's start with our top, so a div with a class of top. Then within the top, let's have a paragraph. Within this paragraph, let's write a text of not a member, so member. Then let's have a span also in the paragraph, and this span should have a data-id of a particular color. So go to your styles.css and copy this color here. So copy this color, the pink color, and go and paste it here. Then within this span, let's have a text of register now. Then below the top, let's have our form. Then within this form, let's start with a div with a class of form control. Then within this form control, let's start with our h2, which is hello again. Then below the h2, let's have a paragraph, and it should have a text of welcome back, you've been missed. Then below this paragraph, let's have an input, and it should be a type of text, and a placeholder should be, so placeholder, let's give it a placeholder of enter username. Then below this input, let's have a div. Then this div should contain our input with a type of password. Let's remove this name and ID, and let's give it a placeholder of password. Then below this password input, let's have our icon. So it should be a div with a class of icon and a secondary class of form dash icon. And this should contain an image, and this image should be our icon. So enter into images folder and look for i.svg. Then below this div, let's have a span with a text of recovery password. Then below this span, let's have an input with a type of submit. Then the value should be login. Let's save this and open the project with live server. So I'm going to click go live, or you can use the shortcut Alt LO, and this should open your browser, and we have the project. You can see the image is too large, the icon is also large. So let's go back to our text editor and open styles of CSS, and let's start writing some styles for the form. First, let's start with our body. So let's select the body and let's give it a color of, let's say, our color, the variable. Then below this body, let's select the image box. So let's get a box and we want the image in it. Let's give it a width of 100% and a height of 100%. Now let's get the icon image. So let's get our icon, then we want the image. Let's give it a width of 20 pixels. Let's go back to our browser, and now it looks better. Let's go to our text editor and let's first start with our section. Then let's give it position of relative. Mean height should be, not mean width, mean height should be 100 VH. Let's give it background color of, let's say, light blue. So our color variable light, so light blue. And let's also give it display of flex and align items center, justify content center. Let's also give it transition of 500 milliseconds. Then below that, let's select our container class. So let's enter into our section, then we want our container. Then here, let's give it position of relative. So position relative. Then let's give it width of 900 pixels. Then height of 500 pixels. Also, let's give it background color of white. So background color of white. Let's also set box shadow. So box shadow to, let's say, 10 pixels, then 40 pixels, and let's give it RGB of 0.2. Now let's give it overflow of hidden. So overflow hidden. But let's comment this out. Later we will uncomment it. Then below that, let's select our, first let's go to the browser and check how it looks. And now this is how it looks. It's getting better. So let's go back to our text editor, then to our styles of CSS, and let's get our user class. Let's give it position of absolute, and top should be 0. Left also should be 0. Then let's give it width of 100%. So width of 100% and height of also 100%. Let's set display to flex. Now let's select the img box. So let's get our section and we want the img dash box. Let's give it position of relative, width of 50%. Also, let's set height to 100%, and let's give it this transition. So where is it? Let's give it this transition. Now let's copy this class and let's paste it here, and let's get the image from the img box. Let's give it object fit of cover. Also, let's give it position of absolute, and top should be 0. Let's set left to also 0. Now let's go and get our form box. So let's look for form box below the image box. Let's look for form box. Let's copy this class. Then below the img, let's have our section, and let's paste our form box here. Let's give it position of relative and width of 50%. So let's copy this here. Let's paste it here. Let's move the first one. Let's save this. Let's also give it the background color of white. So background color should be white. Now let's select the top in the form box. So let's copy this down, and let's go and select our class, which is immediately in the form box, this class. Then let's paste it here, and let's give it position of absolute, and top should be 14 pixels, and right, so right should be 14 pixels also. Then let's get a paragraph in the top div. We want a paragraph in the top div. Let's give it font size of, let's say, 13 pixels. Then let's get the span also. Let's copy this. Let's paste it here. We want the span. Let's give it color of our custom color. So custom color. And let's also give it cursor of pointer. Now let's get the form itself. So this is the form. Then let's say section, and we want the form. Now let's go to our browser and check if we are on track. All right, the image is well positioned and the form box also. Now let's go to our text editor and let's write some styles for the form. So let's give it position of absolute. So position absolute. Let's give it top of 55%. Let's give it left of 50%. Then transform, translate, negative 50%, negative 50%. Now let's set display to flex. Then align items. Note that let's give it flex direction of column. Then justify content of, let's say, space between. Now let's select the first form control, because you're going to have another form control, but let's just copy this and paste it here for now. Then let's get this first form control. So go to your styles of CSS and let's write some styles. So section, we want the form control, so control, and we want the first child. Then let's give it text align of center. Let's go back to our browser and check. All right, let's go to our text editor, and now let's get the input in the first child. Now we want the input. Let's give it font family of Poppins, sans serif. Then let's give it border radius of, let's say, 5 pixels. Then let's give it border of 1 pixel, solid, and DDD. Then let's give it padding of 10 pixels, 0. Also, let's give it margin bottom of 10 pixels, margin bottom of 10 pixels. Then let's set text indent to 16 pixels. Let's also give it color of our color. Then outline should be none. Now let's get the input again, but this time around we want the input with the type of submit. So let's say type should be submit. That is our submit button. Let's give it display of block, but first let's check. And now we have our input. Then all right, let's go back to our text editor and let's give it display of block, not grid, display of block, text align of center. Let's set width to 100% and border to none. Let's also set outline to none. Then let's give it cursor of pointer. Also, let's give it background color of our custom color. Then let's give it color of white. So text color should be white. Then let's give it some nice transition. So let's go and copy our transition property and let's paste it here. Now let's get the h2 in the first child and the paragraph and also the span. So let's copy this here and paste it here. And we want the h2. Let's copy this down 3 times or 2 times. 2 times is okay. Then change the second h2 to paragraph and the third to span. Then in the h2, let's have width of 100%. Then font weight should be 400 and font size should be 26 pixels. Then in the paragraph, let's give it font size of 15 pixels and margin bottom of 20 pixels. Then in the span, let's give it font size of, let's say, 13 pixels and display should be block and text align should be right. Then let's give it margin bottom of 20 pixels. Let's go back to our browser and this is what we have for now. Now let's select the div in the first child. So let's copy this here and let's paste it here. Now we want the div. Let's give it position of relative. Now let's get our icon class in our div. So this is the div. You want this icon, so you can copy this class, go back to your styles.css. Then I'm going to use Windows V because I once copied the first child, and let me paste it here. Then let me have my icon. We want the icon, so icon. Then the icon, let's give it position of absolute. Then let's give it top of 50%. Then transform, translate y of negative 50%. Then right should be 1 rem. And let's give it cursor of pointer. Let's go back to our browser and now it looks okay. Now go back to your text editor and go to images and look for the i.svg and let's give it a fill of 4D. And there should be a pound sign here. I think this is okay. Let's close this and let's open the other one, the height.svg also. Let's give it a fill of the same color. Let's say 4D. I think something is on 4D. So fill 4D, yeah, 4D. Then let's close this. Let's close this one also. Let's go back to our browser and see if it's okay. Yeah, now it looks good. Go back to your styles of CSS, and now let's get. So go to index.html and let's write the code for the second form control. So in the second form control, we are going to have a paragraph, and this paragraph will contain the text of or continue with. Then below this paragraph, we are going to have a div with a class of icons. Then within this div, we are going to have various icons. So start with a div with a class of icon. Then this will contain an image, and the first one will be images. Let's look for search. Let's copy this icon down 3 times. Then let's change the images respectively. The second will be Apple. The third will be Facebook. The fourth will be GitHub. Now save this, go back to your browser, and this is what we have. I think something is missing. We have GitHub, so GitHub is missing. GitHub.svg. Don't know if it is correct. You don't have GitHub here, so go to your browser and let's look for flat icons. Then here search for GitHub. Then wait for it. And which one are we going to use? Let me see the other icons. Okay, let's choose this one. Then copy. Let's download the SVG. This is going to take some time due to my internet connection. Okay, it has already downloaded. Now let me go to my downloads. Go to downloads. Here we have GitHub character. So let me copy this to the project. And here, let me rename this by removing the character from there to only GitHub. Then close this. Let me close this one also. So now we can have github.svg. Now save this and go back to your browser. Let's close this, and now we have GitHub. So let's go to styles.css and let's start writing some styles for the second form control. Now let's select the last form control. So you are going to use a last child. Let's say last child. Then give it just a line of center. Then let's get the paragraph in the last child. We want the paragraph, and let's give it position relative, display inline block, and font size should be 14 pixels. Then now let's get the after for the paragraph. So we want the after. Let's give it content of an empty string, position of absolute. Let's give it right of -50%, and top should be 50%. Let's give it transform, translate y of -50%. Also, let's give it width of 40 pixels, then height of 2 pixels. Let's also give it background color of DDD. So background color should be DDD. Now copy this down, this whole after, then change after to before, and now we are going to change the right to left. So change the right to left. Save this, go back to your browser, and now we have this. Then go back to your text editor. Then let's get the icons in the last child. So we want the icons, so copy this down, and now we want the icons. Let's give it display of flex, align items center, justify content center. Let's also set margin top to, let's say, 20 pixels. Let's save this, go back to our browser, and now this is what we have. So let's go to our text editor and let's get a single icon in the last child. Let's give it cursor of pointer. Then the last child, let's get this also. We want not last child, and let's give it margin right of 15 pixels. And let's see, now everything is okay. The next thing is to code the functionality for the sliding in of the login and the registration form. So go back to your text editor and let's go to index.html. So scroll to the top and let's look for our user div. We're going to copy everything down. So let's look for the ending. This is the user div. So let's copy from here to here and copy it down. I'm going to use Shift Alt and the down arrow key. Now I have it copied. Change the login to, let's say, sign up. Then let's change this login to sign up. Do you have sign up? Yeah, we have sign up.svg. Then within the paragraph, let's say already a member. So not, so let's move this not. Let's say already a member, login now. So login now. Then in the h2 here, let's say welcome Codevo. You can use your own name. Then in the paragraph, let's have it's good to, so good to have you. Then in the input, the first one, which is enter username, let's change the type to email. Then let's also say enter email. Then the div containing the input, let's copy that whole div down. So copy it down, and the second one should be a type of password, and the placeholder should be confirm. So confirm password. Then I think let's save this and go back to our browser, and now this is what we have. Already a member, login, welcome Codevo, and I think it's okay. So let's go to our text editor and open our JS folder. Let's open JS and let's go to index.js and let's get all our elements. So let's start with our container. So container, and here document.query selector .query selector. We don't want a div, we want container, our container class. Let's also get all our inputs which have the type of password. So inputs, so let's say document.query selector. We want our form box. So let's enter into our form box and let's look for input. Then not all input, because some of the input we have type of. So let's go to index.html. This input, its type is submit. We don't want this input. So you go back and let's say type should be equal to, let's say, password. So password, and this should do it, but the outside one should be double quote. So let me copy, let me just put double quotes there, and I think this will do it. Let me remove this, close this. Then the next one is our icons. So let's go to document dot query selector all. Then here we are going to select all the form dash icon. And the next one is our spans, which have our color. So we want document dot query selector all. We want the form dash box, and we want the top, the span in the top. You can go to index.html and look for that. We have, let's look for the top. This is the top, and we have the span here. This is the sign up one. So let's go to style.css and copy a color there. Let's say, I think it is this color, the blue color. Copy this, go to the sign up div and paste it here. Now save this, go back to index.js, and now let's select our section. So section, let's say document.query selector, we want our section. Now let's get the spans, which is a node list, but we want it to be an array. So just put a bracket around it and do this, or you can do array.from. So in the next let's say functionality, we'll use array.from, and I'll show you how it works. So let's say spans.map, we want the individual span. Then let's do this, and here let's get our span and add event listener. We want a click event. Then let's put our callback function here. Then here we are going to get our color from it, which is a e.target.notValue. Here we want dataset.id. Let me show you the ID that we included. This is the data ID. We are using the JavaScript to read that color. So this will produce the value here. So let's go back, and now let's get our container. So container, then when we click, we want to toggle the class of. So toggle the class of active. Also, we want the section to have a class, and we want to toggle active for the section also. Then for our document, let's get our root and change the color. So we get our root, and let's say style.set property, and here the first argument is the variable, which is this one. We are going to use JavaScript to change this variable here. So let's copy this variable here, and let's paste it here, and let's give it the color we got from the span. Now let's go to our browser, and nothing should happen. So let's go to styles.css and write some styles for it, so that we can see the functionalities for. So scroll down, and let's leave a comment of, let's say, functionality. Then below that, let's get our section, then our container, and we want sign up, and here let's set pointer event to none. Now let's get the container again, and if container has a class of active, then we want the sign up to have a pointer event of let's say initial. Then first let's get our form box from, so let's say container, and we want the sign up, but we want the form box. Let's give it top of 100%. Then let's also copy this class again, and let's say if if container has the class of active, then we want the top should be 0. Now let's get the image box also, so to look something like this, and let's change the form here to img, and let's give it top of negative 100%. Then let's copy this down, and when container has a class of active, let's give it top of 0. Then for the login, let's say, but first let's go to our browser and check if it's okay. I think it's looking good. So now we have the sign up, the image which is at the top here, and the text is at the form box is at the bottom here. So let's go to our styles of CSS, and now let's get the login, the form box in the login. So I think it will be something like this, and let's paste it here. Let's change the sign up here to login. So login, and we want the form box. Then let's give it top of 0. Then when container has the class of active, when container, so let's put active here, we want the form box to have top of 100%. Then let's get the image also, so let's paste it here. We want the image, so img, and let's give it top of 0. Then when container has a class of active, we want the image to have top of negative 100%. Now let's go to our browser and check if everything works. So let's click, and it swipes. You can see it is working. Now in order to hide it, we have to go and set overflow to hidden. So go to the same container, and let's uncomment this out. Also for the section, when section has a class of active, we want to change the background color. So here, let's put this here, and let's change it to pink. So our pink color, we want pink, so the light pink. So let's go back and see if it's correct. Now it changes, it changes, it changes, changes. All right, so let's write some media query for the form. Now here at media, and we want max width to be 996 pixels, and let's get our section. By the container in the section, let's give it max width of 400 pixels. Now let's get the image in the container. So all the img box, let's set display to none. Also, let's get a form. So section, we want the container, and here we want the form box. Then let's give it width of 100%. Then let's get our section again. Then when container has a class of active, we want the login, and let's get a form box in the login. Let's give it top of negative 100%. Then let's write the last media query. Then let's paste it here. Let's change the value to 567. Then let's give section some padding. So let's give it padding of, let's say, 030 pixels. So let's go back to our browser and let's see. So let's resize to mobile view, and now we have this. So let's move also. Okay, so we have to swap the images also. We have to swap it. So go to your text editor and open index.html, then copy the image box for the register, so for the sign up div. So copy this image box and paste it below the form box. So go below the form box. Let me look for the form box. So let me click this. This is a form box. Let's paste it here. Now save this. Go back to your browser and click, and this is what we have. Now let's write the functionality for the password visibility. So go to index.js, then let's use array.from to convert all the input to an array. So first it is in node list, so let's change it. So let's say array.from, and we want all the inputs dot map. Then let's get our inputs. Now let's get all icons. Let me see if we included it. All the icons. We need to convert that one also to an array. Also get an error saying map is not a function. So here we want our. So let's change this like this. You can either do array.from and it will change it to an array, or you can do this spread effect here. So let's get our icons. Then let's map. We want our icon. Then first let's do icon.inner html, and it should be equal to, let's go to index.html and copy one of the icon. Let's look for it. Let's copy this. Then let's go and paste it here. Let's save this. Then below that, let's say icon.add event listener. Then it should be a click event. Now let's get a type from the input we got. This input, let's get a type from it. I think this input also, it should be all, because we don't have only one input which has a type of password. So it should be like this. Then let's say input, then let's get an input dot get attribute, and we want the type attribute. Then if type is equal to password, we want input dot set attribute. The first argument is the type and we want test. Then icon dot inner html also should be our hide icon. So hide. Let's save this. Then else if, let's say type is equal to test, we want similar things. So let's copy this and let's paste it here. This time around we want the type to be password. Then let's change the height to high. Let's save this, go back to our browser and check if we have some mistakes and nothing is in the console. So let's click and see. Let's check. The image is missing. Alright, it seems there is something wrong. So go to here, we have signup.svg, and for the login we still have the login, but let me see. See, everything is correct, but I don't know why that is happening. So let's go to our browser again. Let's check for this. Let's do this and let's click, and it's changed to test. Let's hide it again. All right, everything is working. Okay, let me refresh this, and still this image is behaving weird. Let me see. There is nothing wrong with the image. So let me bring it back. Okay, this is magical. So let me go back and let's see. All right. Okay, guys, this is the end of the tutorial, and I hope you like this tutorial. Make sure you subscribe, like, and share this video. See you in the next tutorial.